The past few years have seen an absolute explosion in small, cheap, multiplayer games. Whether it's Among Us, Peak, Lethal Company, or any of the many others, these games have enough in common that they have been dubbed Friendslop by many online. And that term seems to have stuck around for the most part. The reasoning behind the derogatory moniker is that these games are often seen as only being fun if you have friends to play them with, in the sense that the gameplay does not reward the single-player experience. And to a degree, this line of reasoning is correct. This genre has several staples that define it, the first and most obvious being that all of the games are intended for multiple players. While you theoretically can play a game like Peak solo, the game has mechanics that are only truly accessible when playing with others. The Friendslop genre is also notable in that all of the games are relatively small in scope. These are not AAA open-world RPGs. These are games focused on or around a specific activity. Social deduction, physical activity, or avoiding monsters are common themes. Finally, almost all games in the genre are cheap, usually under $20, but often under $10. All of these not only define this genre, but in fact, help it flourish. Multiplayer games are not particularly rare in this day and age. As of recording, Steam has over 19,000 multiplayer games available, if you're going by tags. These range from party games to shooters to arcade racers, giving your average gamer nearly endless options to choose from. Furthermore, 44% of gamers worldwide prefer multiplayer games to single-player ones, but I would wager that even gamers that prefer single-player experiences still own a few multiplayer games. A major reason that multiplayer games, and thus Friendslop games, are so popular now is due to the lack of adequate third spaces in the real world. For those that don't know, a third space is defined as a social space separate from your home or your workplace. Some examples might be a bar, or a rock climbing gym, or a social club. While these kinds of third spaces do exist, there are obstacles to getting to them. Transportation is expensive, they charge for entry, or the hours they are open are not conducive to everyone's schedules. Take a night out with friends at a bar, for example. You either need to pay for an Uber or other rideshare, and once you get there, you have to pay for drinks, and maybe even a cover, just to go inside. Then, you need to go home at the end of the night, which is even more money spent. When looking at the total cost of a single night out, you are probably looking at a minimum of $30 spent, assuming you are getting cheap rides and only a single drink. Or, for less money, you can buy a multiplayer game and spend time with friends without even having to leave your home. And for Friendslop games, that cost is even less. Sure, you might only play a title like Content Warning for a single night, but it's only $8 to spend a fun evening with friends. As such, these games provide a cheap and easy way to spend time with the people you like, which is especially valuable in an era where gas prices are $4 a gallon or more. It should be pointed out as well that in addition to being cheap, these games are usually small, not just in download size, but in scope. Take a game like Among Us. Arguably the first Friendslop game, Among Us can be played on your phone, PC, or console. A simple concept where you try and figure out who the imposter is amongst your group. There are tiny minigames within that, but by and large, the main gameplay is social deduction. There's no base building, platforming, or survival crafting. The game only really tries to do one particular thing, often to its benefit. When playing a Friendslop game, you know what you're getting into. Gamble with your friends is, you guessed it, about gambling. Web fishing is about fishing. Peak is about climbing a mountain. Plus, due to their size and scope, they run well on most devices. Among Us requires 1 GB of RAM and barely any storage. Compare that to AAA releases like Call of Duty that require far more processing power and occasionally upwards of 100 GB of storage. Friendslop as a genre is just more accessible for consumers. Even your friend who is using a decade-old gaming laptop probably has a gigabyte of space available, which makes it extra easy to convince your friend group to participate. Far easier than a AAA multiplayer title, which often has requirements that are barriers of entry to many. Friendslop games are cheap, not just for gamers, but also for the developers. With the scope of these games being limited, they are usually easier to produce. RV There Yet was originally a game jam project, and then they spent only 8 weeks getting it ready for release. Peak was also developed during a game jam, and look at it now. Due to production times being lower for this genre, developers have less of a reason to charge high prices to recoup the cost of development. Peak is currently available for $8, for instance. This price point also works well with the multiplayer aspect of Friendslop games, and is further enhanced by the smaller scope of these games. Try convincing your friend Jeremy to buy a $60 AAA multiplayer title, where there is the possibility of this game getting shuttered, look at Concord, Jeremy's friend group moving on super quickly from the game, or Jeremy just straight up may not enjoy playing it. Meanwhile, for a Friendslop title, the cost is negligible, sometimes less than a cup of coffee. These games can be locally hosted, so you don't need giant servers in order to keep the game running, which means they won't be shut down overnight. And if Jeremy's friends move on after playing it once, it's fine. He only paid $8, and he probably saw all the game had to offer in one session. And if he doesn't like it, no big deal. It was $8. Friendslop games are multiplayer games limited in scope and cost, which is why they are so popular. They install easily on most machines, and you can buy a copy for a friend for less than the price of a McDonald's cheeseburger. And most importantly, they bring people together in an era where that is increasingly difficult. Third spaces are shrinking due to inflation and price gouging. Traditional methods of socialization are getting further and further out of reach for the average person, and when the next generation of consoles starts at several $100s or more, people need a cheaper way to spend time with the people they love. Friendslop is an answer to that. It's cheaper and easier than organizing a hiking trip up a mountain, going to a casino, or making a successful YouTube channel. And it does a pretty good job of approximating those things. Friendslop games may not be the most innovative gaming option out there, but they are a solution to an emerging problem. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got to go find the imposter. If you liked this video, please leave a comment telling me about a great experience you had playing one of these games. And if you really like this video, go ahead and subscribe.